And many have said that this mayor of Philadelphia is taking the words right out of President Obama's handbook, but not only saying that this has nothing to do with Islam, but also bringing up gun control, saying that should be the answer. So that's another question this morning. Where is the White House? Crickets from them. We have not heard a statement at all. That's why we brought in Dana Perino to ask you, how should the president be responding?
Well, I think that they've made a decision. It's not just that the mayor takes the cues from the president. It's that this is how the left is planning to approach what we are going to face in America, which is growing terrorism threats. They want to make this about gun control. The CNN had the gun control town hall the other night. That was very good, right? Everybody thought, oh, it's good weighing of the issues. But I thought it was actually based on false premises. CNN came up with the idea of that town hall after the San Bernardino attacks to do something on gun control, when the San Bernardino attacks, as we know from the FBI, were a terrorist attack. And it should be labeled as such, and I think that's how you want to fight it. I do think that the president is facing a couple of things here. He is trying to figure out a way to fit everything into his narrative. He's already written his farewell address. So he wants circumstances to fit into that farewell address. But when you're president of the United States, circumstances happen from all over the world, even here at home in Philadelphia.
Makes it difficult, too, with the president on Tuesday night delivering the State of the Union address, which is supposed to be, according to reports, forward-thinking and talking about the future of this country. So to come out and hold a press conference on Sunday talking about terrorism and then a night later talking about the State of the Union is strong, it's a little difficult. In President Obama's mind, the state of our union is strong, and they can point to many metrics, and they can say, look at all the great things that we're doing. On the other side, you have the fact that he has a disapproval rating of about 51%, and so that means that there are people looking at the same story in Philadelphia, and we're so polarized, like, well, how could both things be true? In his mind, they are, and I guess that people are just going to have to listen to both sides and decide, and I think that people are also weighing in on the side of the police. I thought that your point earlier in the previous hour was really good, Tucker. What the mayor did is he basically said the police have revealed evidence, as told to them by the suspect, that is not true. So the mayor is basically putting his thumb on the scale of justice before the case is even has a chance to be investigated.
Well, we're getting to Baghdad Bob level here.
Yes,
where people are just lying and demanding that you pretend to believe their lies. But there's got to be a political component. I mean, the president's legacy is the next president. There's a tightly fought election underway now. And a pretty large component of the Democratic coalition is demanding that the president not acknowledge there's a problem within Islam, which there clearly is. Is that playing a role in this? It's got to.
Well, it could, but I also think it could hurt him more as well, because one of the things that he said in his the president did the town hall with CNN the next day at an op-ed in the New York Times in which he said, I will not campaign for, I will not support anybody who does not back me on my particular gun control action. And if you look at red states, Tucker, where you are purple states, where you have, you still have some moderate Republicans or moderate Democrats that would try to vote, he's putting a lot of them in a box. West Virginia, Joe Manchin, the senator there, that's a good example.
Yeah, it's over. I mean, I don't think Hillary's going to carry West Virginia. That's my bold.
Are you going to? That's so
bold prediction. I'm going out on a limb now.
Wow. You heard it here first.
About the refugee crisis and what's going on in Germany, in Cologne, around New Year's.
This was terrible.
It was awful. This mob of up to 1,000 robed men did this, and apparently 18 migrants have been identified as being responsible for the violent assaults on women, many of them of a sexual nature. And one of the leaders there was even blaming the victims, blaming women. The mayor says it was taken out of context, but what do you say?
Well, the context there should have been no mistake in the context if they had said this will not be tolerated. And instead it was, women, you've got to be careful, take care of yourselves. And I think that the mayor probably did not intend for that to be the only message. But these groups, migrants, and you just heard your previous guest say this, they are taking advantage of Western weakness, of Western tolerance. And we now are looking at a situation in Cologne where Europeans are being asked to assimilate, and European women, after all that women around the world have tried to accomplish, European women are having to try to assimilate to the mob.
Exactly, but the opposite is not. These people are coming from countries where unaccompanied women in miniskirts do not appear in public, period.
Correct.
And yet there's no effort to assimilate them into Western values. We just import these people and hope for the best. That's happening in this country, too.
Or we're told to change our behavior
Which is unacceptable. So I think that it's not only in Cologne, Germany. If you look at this as a problem across Europe, and it's something that people should be worried about.
Do you think it was in England as they're walking their dogs in the park?
Well, and remember, this wasn't also just a spontaneous. Well, I don't think it was so spontaneous. As Greg Gutfeld said the other day in his monologue on the 5, one of the perpetrators took firecrackers, threw them into the crowd. That made everybody scared. They moved to another part, and that's where the sexual assaults were taking place. So this is planned. This is something that they do. This is not spontaneous. It wasn't just like one act. It was a planned attack by a mob.
And some have said that this was hushed by authorities and hushed by the media.
Well, I think that they were dealing with the same thing that the Philadelphia mayor was dealing with, which is Islamophobia phobia. They held this story for 3 days trying to figure out what to do because they now have such a big problem. They don't want to offend their migrant population, and they don't know what to do.
I mean, victims were reportedly calling out for help, wailing for help, and officers weren't able to get to them because these robed men were blocking them.
The best thing is that today you're seeing on your screen right now the protests that are underway. These are live. These are Germans who are coming together and saying we are not going to tolerate any sexual assault against our women at all.
But they've been tolerating it for 20 years.
Hopefully this will be a turning point.
But you look at the history, the recent history of Europe's attempt to integrate large Muslim populations. They failed. Why could anybody look at this and say, you know what, let's try that here? I just don't get that.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we're saying is that we don't want to try that.
Well, look, you can't put the genie back in the bottle either. What do they do now?
Well, I think that if they found 18, you said, I think that severe punishment, swift and severe punishment, so that you have a deterrent, number one. And number two, then you have to deal with the community. You try to have to find the leaders of the community that can help you.
Will you stick around, please? We're going to talk politics here in the United States.
Yes, of course.
We're going to have a producer bar the door, so we'll see you.
And Vladimir Putin showing off his many talents once again. As Clayton showed you at the top of the show, he takes to the judo mat in Sochi, throwing several Russian national team members to the ground. The Russian president complimented his team, which led the Olympic medal count in 2012. Putin has been known to show off, his body, among other things, including riding a horse, shirtless in Siberia several years ago, and scoring 8 goals in a birthday hockey match against Russia's greatest players. Do you think they let him
do
that or no?
Dana Perino is back now. We're going to talk politics now about the Iowa caucuses. But first, Dana, come on. Those guys just let him win.
When he wrestled the Siberian tiger, he legitimately won.
Did you guys see this week? I had one more thing about there's a new cologne in Russia. It's called Essence of Putin. Essence of a leader, and it's supposedly the essence of Putin.
I bet it's musky.
Leather and fresh air.
I'm going to start wearing it tomorrow.
Salt water. Okay.
Women won't be able to control themselves.
Get closer or further away.
All right, so we're going to throw some poll numbers at you since you're a professional political person. Here's a new Fox poll out of New Hampshire. The question, who are you going to vote for on the Republican side? Trump's still at 33, Rubio 15, Ted Cruz 12. Jeb 9, Kasich 7, and then the rest. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's not. To me, there's not many surprises there. I mean, Cruz has fallen a little bit. People might be surprised that Jeb is hanging in there like that. There was a New Hampshire 1 poll that came out yesterday as well, and it showed that Trump is in the lead, and that Jeb and Kasich are tied for second. So I think there doesn't seem to be a lot of movement. Trump's so far out ahead, but could Rubio or Kasich even? He was on the 5 this week, and he was talking about his ground game and organization. He also said that if they can't make a stand in New Hampshire, they're not going to drag the whole thing out. So they know that they've got about 4 weeks to try to lock it down.
Let's look at Iowa, where Cruz has been widening his lead a little bit, even though we're still statistically tied. See, 4.5% is the margin of error there. So he's basically tied with Donald Trump there. But, Donald Trump has been up in Vermont. He's been down in Biloxi, Mississippi. He's obviously been spending time in Iowa. But these other guys have been going door to door. Mike Huckabee holding 150 different events. This retail politics.
Right. So remember in 2012, who won Iowa, right?
Yeah.
Rick Santorum came out from nowhere. Nobody thought he would ever win. So these last 3 weeks are so important. In 2008, 30% of people didn't make their final decision of who they would vote for, Republicans, until after the last debate. In 2012, it was 46% waited until then. So if you're the front runner like Ted Cruz in Iowa, you know that you're going to get hit over and over again. So you have to be able to withstand that. I understand he's got a great team there, but there could be something that lies beneath that none of us are seeing. And then all of a sudden on election night after Iowa, we'll say, oh, how did we miss that?
So what, 3 weeks before Iowa, not that anyone really knows, but what's your guess as to why Donald Trump was doing a rally in Burlington, Vermont?
I think that
he gets so much national media attention that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, where he is.
That doesn't matter. And also, you have to remember this too. There's the national media attention, which is important, but something that all of us that follow politics and care about it, television is not as important in terms of leaving impressions as it used to be. Social media is where that is at. And Dr. Carson, for example, everybody thought he was just, all the pundits wrote him off. Last quarter, he raised $23 million.
Right.
And he actually was able, he had a rally the other night, sold out, had to do a full spillover crowd. So I think that there's a lot going on that maybe we're just not showing up in the polls.
Finally, can Governor Jeb Bush make a move, and would it help if his brother joined him on the campaign trail?
So there's an article written by a Republican operative in South Carolina this week, basically saying that she thinks 43's presence on the trail would help. So then the question is put, should 43 do that? I think what he has said is that if his brother wants his help, he will be there. He loves his brother. I will point out, as a former staffer of George W. Bush, who is the Republican that has received the most sustained and spontaneous applause at each of the debates this year? It's George W. Bush. And so I think that there is a hunger to see him by some people, not all, I guarantee. But would he be an asset to Jeb? He would be, but I don't think he needs to be. Jeb has to win this on his own.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Am I right?
I mean, I'm taking your word for it, as I always do.
Thank you for waking up early on a Saturday, Dana.
Great to see you,
Appreciate it. More
Dana.
Fox
We'll
and
be right
Friends
back.
next.
It's not wise to argue.